Here's to the future.
Walking those old scenes.
Here's to getting back up. And here's to coming home.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to Backlot Banter, another movie review on this channel. And today, I'm here to talk about Empire of Light with the one and only Sam Meltzer for the first time here on this channel. We're talking about Empire of Light, Sam Mendes' follow-up to 1917, the Best Picture nominated film, and he took a hard left to end up in the world of Empire of Light. But if you want to talk to us about Empire of Light or any other films in this award season at all, you can join our Discord. That link is in the top of the description. And while you're down there, subscribe to my channel, ring the bell so you know when we're uploading any of these movie reviews, many movie reviews, and leave a comment letting us know your thoughts on Empire of Light. But Sam, you are here for the first time, and you're going to give us a little bit of intro about yourself. You're going to let us know what this movie is about, because this is a Sam Meltzer review, and that means that we're doing a summary of what this movie is about for the first time here on Backlot Banter.
Yeah, so I'm so happy to be here. I've known some of the guys on Backlog Banter for about a year now. I'm a big fan of their work, especially their Best Picture series, since
Yes.
I'm an Oscar film fan. But yeah, Empire of Light, it's about Hilary Small, played by Academy Award winner Olivia Colman, a
Our
cinema
queen.
manager. Yeah, a queen, literally, too.
Yes.
And won an Oscar and an Emmy for playing a queen. So she's a cinema manager who's dealing with what we think is schizophrenia, and it's during the early 1980s in a small seaside English town. And the film showcases her everyday life, from the ups and downs of working at the movie theater, things like the day-to-day ticket and snack management, to the abusive workplace relationship between her and her boss, Donald, played by Colin Firth, as well as the issues she has with her mental health and her kind of lonely personal life. And after Stephen, played by Michael Ward, enters the scene as the newest employee at the cinema, the film sort of dives into a more romantic path, while also highlighting the systemic racism of early 1980s England.
Yeah, and it's the confluence of the themes, which are, I would say, pretty backgrounded for the majority of the film, and the romantic A-plot of the film that I found to be really compelling. This is a film that I had seen all my friends on Letterboxd give like a hearty 6 out of 10, and I was going in like, hey, I really like Sam Mendes. Like 1917 and American Beauty are fantastic movies, and I'm really excited to see what he does with some of the best craftspeople in the industry, as we're going to talk about. The cinematography by I almost said Daddy Deakins, because I always call him that, by Roger Deakins, a score by Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross, Olivia Colman, one of the premier actors of the current times, and I was not disappointed. Personally, this is one of my top 15, 20 favorite movies of this year. I was really surprised how much I liked it, seemingly more than most people, but it is the fact that we get such a compelling romance with two amazing leads and some solid supporting themes that make it a little more texturally and thematically interesting, that makes this film stick out to me quite a bit.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very well-made movie.
Yeah.
Technically, I think the score is very entrancing. It's a very inviting musical composition. It's nothing you haven't seen before if you've seen either a British period drama or some sort of Oscar bait movie of the 2010s. But I feel like it works really well. It fits the style really well, and yeah, I mean, the cinematography, obviously great. The setting is very inviting, despite the fact that it's cold outside when the movie, when the movie takes place. I feel like you're kind of swept up in the world, which Sam Mendes does a very good job at.
Yeah.
So Revolutionary Road is a movie he made
Haven't seen
almost
that yet,
almost 15 years ago, and the story is pretty basic. It's just about a marriage and a relationship, and it's a period drama. But when the movie starts, you hear this gorgeous score by Thomas Newman. And Sam Mendes does a really good job of kind of hiding the fact that a plot or a theme of a film is basic or not original.
Sure.
By inviting you into the world so well. And, you know, I would so call that movie corny and basic, but the second that Thomas Newman's score started playing, I was so into it. And in a way, I felt the same way about what Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross did with Empire of Light. Because had the music not been as compelling, it wouldn't have made the film as interesting to me.
Yeah.
So I was really engaged the whole time. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, no, it is those crafts as by those talented, some of the top talent in the industry people that makes this film more than just that Oscar bait, simple drama, relatively simple story film. Because the first like 4 or 5 minutes of the film are just shots of a cinema, of a seaside small English town and what this cinema is like, and focusing on the lights and maybe the popcorn and this beautiful score going by. And some of the, I mean, Roger Deakins is like the name in cinematography in the industry, and he shoots everything beautifully. And this movie is no exception. And frankly, I think that this movie is more of a nuanced and like personal look of what Roger Deakins can do, because he's also the cinematographer Denis Villeneuve, and he does big sweeping shots and just like giant scale. But this is a really intimate and personal look at what Roger Deakins cinematography can do, and nice lighting, soft lighting, good playing with color, and really capturing the warmth of a place like a cinema, which is, yes, that is a classic Oscar baity thing. We're setting something in the past, it's about movies. Isn't that going to be just remarkable and win a lot of awards? No, as we'll talk about. But I think that the fact that I am a film person, I love the aesthetic of older cinemas, I love the score by Reznor and Ross. It is really intoxicating, and then that is just, for me, supported by the writing and the performances of the lead characters that we end up getting wrapped up in once the movie really starts getting going.
Absolutely, and I feel like that love for the movies is demonstrated in what I think is the absolute best moment of the film. You saw it in the teaser trailer, especially.
Yeah.
Was the scene towards the end where Olivia Colman is watching a film in the cinema.
Yeah.
And regardless
watching
of
a movie
how you
for
feel,
the first time, it's hard to tell.
Yeah, it was a little weird. But regardless of how you feel about the movie, I feel like everyone kind of agrees that scene is just beautiful. Like, it really worked on me. Like, the cinematography, just the close-up on her face, doing classic Olivia Colman crying. Which, by the way, I think Olivia Colman is one of the best criers. Because she doesn't... It's clear that so many actresses do so much with their face to try and cry. But she does it so naturally. And that scene, it's just beautiful. And the lighting of this entire film, especially, really good.
Yeah.
Recently, I've sort of respected and appreciated the lighting of movies more, because I'm not going to name film names, but I've seen a couple films recently that were really dark and didn't need to be, and this doesn't feel that way, even though a lot of it takes place at night. A lot of it takes place in a winter city. A lot of it takes place indoors in a cinema, which is a naturally dark place.
Yeah.
So they did a really nice job. I mean, it's Deakins. I mean, I can't just keep saying that over and over again, but great job on the lighting and engagement level. Two things definitely standouts for me.
Yeah. And it is also Olivia Colman, and by extension her relationship with Michael Ward, that is the heart of this movie. I'm talking about those crafts, but for me it was those performances that did add that extra layer that really pulled me in. Olivia Colman's character, oh god, can you remind me of her name? Something Smalls. Hilary Smalls.
Hillary.
Yes, my bad. Hilary Smalls. She is fascinating because she's so ridiculously understated for like the first 90 minutes of this movie, like hour 40 minutes of the movie. Like, she's quiet, she's like observing people, and you're not quite sure what's wrong with her or why she is so quiet or distanced from other people. But she was really compelling in the way that you would see through this sort of quiet and reserved demeanor a bright smile shine through in these moments that she shares with Michael Ward. And that's why I was so compelled to see where we would end up, or what the like twists or real plot reveals would be, because I saw this woman that was so fascinating to me on like a mystery level. I'm like, who is she? Why is she the way that she is? And Olivia Colman giving this really subtle and nuanced performance, again, for that first half, 2/3 of the movie, until things break down. She has a mental health episode that breaks her character and gives her another extra layer that made her even more interesting. So this movie really gripped me because of who her character was, but I can also understand why she's not one of the characters of the year that everyone's like gravitating towards, because she's so quiet. She's such a simple person. I mean, she doesn't like really have any friends. She doesn't do anything extravagant. She's kind of just living her life, and I found that in that simplicity to be a lot to grab onto.
I do think she's an amazing actress, of course. And this is a big role, and I think she does do a very Olivia Colman kind of performance with it, if that makes sense. She does nail every emotional beat, and even though sometimes I was a bit iffy on the dialogue she was given or a certain arc she had, I feel like she overcame it in a really natural way. I mean, again, like there are some scenes in the movie that are just incredibly heavy-handed and kind of obvious. Like there's a scene in the movie where she's walking down the street and like she sees something in the store and she's kind of just walking around and she sees Michael Ward's character like get bullied by this group of white guys. And it's just like her face is just like her looking all sad and about to cry while he walks away. And it's just like such a classic Oscar bait moment.
True.
And the movie has scenes like that where I'm like, okay, like you did not take that director loss for 1917 well. Like you want it this time, don't you?
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's not horrible. It's not unnatural. It's just I've definitely seen it before.
Yeah, and that's, I think, where most people kind of feel a disconnect from this movie is with the themes and the presentation and, like, development of them throughout the course of the film. They're again, yeah, you're right. It's nothing we've never seen before. But I think that, for me, having the themes of interracial relationships and conflicts sort of boiling in the background and impacting, obviously, Stephen, Michael Ward's character, very directly, and impacting the way that he like approaches him interacting with people at work, and like when he leaves work, how does that sort of make his persona shift? That made him a lot more interesting of a character because it's a societal pressure that he's feeling that he's able to escape from when or largely able to escape from when he's spending time with Hillary, and that made the way that they connected and bonded feel really genuine. I mean, one of the first moments they have together is sneaking up to this abandoned section of the cinema, which is a gorgeously abandoned place that's like really lavish and has these birds and they're taking care of this little bird. And that's like such a personal and intimate moment that we first see Hillary like smile and like let her guard down there. And even though the two of them are facing like misogyny and workplace abusive relationship on Hillary's side and interracial tensions on Stephen's side, they are able to like let that go when they spend time together, and that like made me feel really connected to the bond and relationship that they built over the course of the film.
I do agree that the romance is the highlight of the film, especially those scenes, as you said, in the abandoned sections of the theater, as well as the ones where we're making sand castles on the beach and whatnot. I was swooned by their relationship in the end, and I do think it was the most compelling aspect of the movie. But you bring up all of these topics, as in the plot summary, I brought up all these topics. It talks about abusive workplace relationships, working class life, mental illness, race relationships, interracial relationships. It has all of these themes, but to me, not all of them are fully explored.
True,
and that's my issue with the movie.
Yeah.
And that's where I think it's the most Oscar bait, because it was Sam Mendes saying, I couldn't win Best Picture with 1917. I couldn't win Best Director with that. I really want to win. And he got literally every theme he possibly could and shoved it into one movie. And it feels thematically very messy.
True.
And a little hard to have one takeaway from. I do think that the romance and the whole interracial relationship, especially with the riots that were going on in the movie, that could be argued the most significant takeaway.
Probably.
But there are just so many things going on that it feels a little uneven and unfocused narratively. But ultimately, again, I did like the movie because I was swooned by the romance, and technically it's very inviting. But I understand why the reviews are not great because of how messy it is thematically.
Yeah. I think the reason I don't see it as messy thematically, just sort of like complex thematically, is because it does play with the concepts of intersectionality of Hillary being a woman that is receiving abuse from misogynistic people, but she's also a white woman, so she doesn't understand the racial tensions that Steve explicitly doesn't understand some of the racial tensions that Stephen is experiencing, and they have this whole the theme is intersectionality in my mind. It's like these people in this time period are facing all of these problems, and it's each like compounding them to being withdrawn from other people, which is then where that really supports the romance. So even though it is like a lot of things, like on the periphery of like, yeah, theme here, theme there, theme there. It's not all tying exactly to the middle, but it's tying to the characters and then to the romance, which is, as you said, the center of the film. So even though there are a lot of ideas, and I do think that in terms of thematic resonance and like really digging in and understanding either workplace abuse or interracial relationships or the the interracial riots of the 1980s, if you'd just chosen one or two of those, it probably would have been a clearer vision. It personally didn't harm my enjoyment or a connection to the film because it felt realistic that these people would be going through these things. And it felt really real when we found out that that Hillary has schizophrenia or something like that. I'm not exactly sure if it's explicitly stated what kind of mental health condition she's experiencing, but that felt like a genuine thing that explains a lot of her distance from other people and her reactions to certain things, and it adds another layer to the complexity of each of the relationships, even the supporting characters, as we're going into that final act. I felt like all of them fit in the time period. There were a lot of them, yes, absolutely, it could have been more focused, but people experience a lot of different things in their life, so it felt realistic to me.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, movies can juggle a ton of themes. The widely regarded best film of the year, Everything Everywhere All at Once, discusses aging. It discusses acceptance of queerness. It discusses like immigrants. It discusses financial difficulties. But I feel like that movie, I mean, it doesn't feel like a fair comparison. No. But I don't have issues.
That's a much better movie.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have issues with movies that juggle multiple themes. I feel like where we differ is that you thought of it as more complex, and I thought of it as more messy and a little unfocused. Totally fair. But I mean, also I'm coming from the perspective of it's clear to me why this movie was made, and it was to kind of get Oscar nominations. Which is interesting because I don't know how many it will be getting in the end. But you know, I did enjoy it. I do think it's a good film.
Yeah, well, let's talk a little bit before we give a score. I'm not sure if you want to give a score, but I will, because we do that in all our reviews. Let's talk a little bit about that award season buzz, or honestly lack of buzz, because you're right, this is an awardsy film. And when you're thinking about at the beginning of the year, like, oh, what's going to be in that cinematography and performance and direction and picture lineups? Yeah, Sam Mendes working with Olivia Colman and Reznor and Ross and Roger Deakins. Of course that's going to be up there. But this movie came out with no fanfare, middling reviews, terrible box office reception. It just exists, and for me, it's underrated. I really wish that it was performing better. I really think that Deacon's cinematography, I mean, this might be my personal favorite cinematography that he's done in terms of how much I remember of the cinematography. This might be my favorite Coleman performance, but it's not getting the nominations that I think maybe it deserves, but most people kind of feel like, yeah, it fits into these categories, but it's not blowing us out of the water for these.
Yeah, I think what happened this year is because we came from 2 years where the release schedule of films was very strange, and awards were kind of weird. And throughout the 2010s and starting in the mid-2000s, a trend was you had to premiere at a festival, and you had to come out late in the year, and you had to do this, and it had to have a specific pattern, and you had to get an editing nomination, and all of this. But now I feel like people in the beginning of 2022 went back to that mindset and put on so much strength for the films that were premiering at the festivals. And movies like this, The Sun, Bardo, are three movies that are looking to get 0 Oscar nominations. But months ago, they were all really high up in the Best Picture race. And I think it's because we overestimate that and don't realize that in the beginning of the year, there are movies that make a lot more money than expected, that have a lot of passion, like Everything Everywhere, Top Gun, and Elvis, which are movies that are looking very strong to get a lot of Oscar nominations. So I feel
and are being nominated at all the other precursors and awards.
Absolutely.
Stuff,
and I feel like we're entering this kind of newer stage where if a movie has passion and comes out at a time where it can make enough money, it can win Best Picture. And a movie like Empire of Light, which is so geared towards winning awards, is geared, I think, more towards an older audience, which, you know, the critics aren't rallying behind the movie. I feel like it would have done better had it come out 10 years ago. And ultimately, yesterday, the shortlist came out, and it missed a Best Score
Yeah.
shortlist
Sad.
slot. So and Olivia Colman still could get the nomination,
Possibly.
but it's looking less and less likely by the
We'll
day.
see when we hit BAFTAs and SAG.
But the thing is, BAFTA hasn't nominated Olivia Colman since The Favorite.
Huh,
So
okay.
they have been weird on her with the jury. So I'm not convinced she's going to get in there, and I don't
Yeah.
think SAG is going to go for it because no one really saw the movie. So at this point, it could be a surprise, but I don't see her really getting in. And the only other nomination I think it could get is cinematography, but
Yeah.
the field is so strong that
True.
it could totally miss that too.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
this
absolutely.
really could be shut out entirely, which is shocking considering that we all thought it would be one of the biggest players of the year months ago.
Yeah, but I think that what I am seeing this year and why, even though I really love Empire of Light, as I've been saying, I would love for it to enter these categories, but I recognize it's not going to. But I'm willing to take that loss in trade for what this award season for me is signaling is a wider breadth of types of movies and release schedule of movies and scale of movies and popularity of movies that are competing on the same level. I mean, Top Gun Maverick, like what, the fourth, fifth highest grossing movie that has ever existed in the history of the world, and incredibly popular and blockbuster action cinema, is competing with Tar in like multiple categories, and those movies could not be farther apart in terms of theme, in terms of scope, in terms of popularity, and that's really exciting to me. Also, release date, like that is a breadth that the Oscars, I think, has lost so many people's interest on. It's like, oh, they always just nominate like the small, independent, really personal movies, and that's been a criticism a lot of people have had of the Academy in the last 10 years. But we've also seen them trend towards giving weirder things awards and like expanding what each of these categories could mean. And this year's kind of, at least for me, the culmination of all of that. When I look at that Best Picture lineup, even though it doesn't have Empire of Light, which I loved and I would have expected to be in there 7 months ago, even though it doesn't have that, I'm like, hold on, wait. I love like all of these movies that are in this category, and they're all so different. This isn't us getting like a Vice and a Phantom Thread and a whatever, like all like sort of operating in the same echelon of like director and about a person in biopics. Like, wait, how many biopics do we have in that Best Picture race? Elvis? Is that it?
Elvis. Yeah, that might be it.
And that's really cool to me that we're like shifting what the Academy is like willing to award or at least nominate.
Yeah.
Yeah. And unfortunately, like, that means that a classically Oscar-baiting movie like Empire of Light is just like, we don't want to play with you anymore. Goodbye.
Nope.
Yeah.
And I like that shift.
Yeah,
because
absolutely. Me too.
And also, like, even if this was a regular year, had the film gotten the same reviews, I'm not sure it would have done that well.
Yeah.
But also, like, I watched this movie with a crowd of old people. I was by far the youngest person in that theater.
Well, same
and
here.
it got a good response. It wasn't like, whoa. But it did get a really good response.
Yeah.
After Olivia Colman's breakdown, an old guy behind me went, "She's amazing." So I mean, there is a passion for it in some capacities, but overall, I don't know how well it ultimately does.
No.
And the box office is like one of the biggest flops ever.
Yes.
But again, like, who wants to, like, no one, this movie doesn't have an audience.
No.
Since COVID, older audiences aren't going to theaters as much. And what young people are going to go out of their way to watch this movie? It's very rare, aside from like us.
I tried to invite a friend to go see it, and I was like, no.
Yeah, exactly.
But I kind of, in some ways, I like it's a pity that this movie is not getting like any recognition anywhere. It's not even that it failed at the box office, but at least it's getting awards. Neither of those. But I also think that's kind of okay, because at least for me, I see the breadth of movies. Again, like, I'm willing to take the loss here on Empire of Light, and I do think this is a movie that will gain appreciation over the years as it goes overlooked, but people look back at it and be like, hold on, whoa, wait. There was a Sam Mendes movie with Olivia Colman and Reznor and Ross and Deakins. Like, let's give that another look, and I think it could gain popularity in coming years, but because it was overlooked in the past.
Yeah, I mean, it not getting Oscar nominations might be the best thing that ever happened to it, because let's say it got showered with nominations and got in over some of these more interesting, better, less baity movies, people would have really taken that negatively, and the impact
absolutely
it has would have been much worse. So in a way, this is kind of a blessing.
Yeah.
If, for the movie's reception.
Yeah. And regardless, it's an interesting story to tell, is that the Oscar baity movie from the biggest Oscar baity people. I mean, Olivia Colman is the Oscar bait actress of the last 5-6 years, is getting shut out. And that's just fascinating to talk about. But for me, that's actually just like a plus for this movie. Now, this like relatively simple and like Oscar baiting movie has like an extra bit of cherry on top narrative. And for me, this is going to get like a 9.2 out of 10. I really love this movie. I loved so many aspects of it. And I felt myself getting emotionally invested in what was going on here. And it's a film I'd like to watch again because I do think that maybe just that first watch could feel a little bit messy, but there might be more to dig into and notice connections on a future rewatch. But we're not going to be reviewing for Quest because it's not getting nominated for Best Picture, so won't have that opportunity. But what are your final thoughts on Empire of Light?
I think it's a solid, engaging drama that is technically great, featuring a usually amazing turn from Olivia Colman.
Yeah.
And Michael Ward is very good too.
He's so charming. What a charming
he
little guy. I do
is.
not blame Olivia Colman at all. Like if this young man came up to me and was giving his charming smile and was like, "Hey, I put my foot sock on a bird," I'd be like, "Okay, all right, you can take me to the beach."
Yeah, he's very handsome.
Yeah,
and I don't know. I mean, as I said, very messy thematically for me, and I get why critics don't like it.
Yeah.
But I was won over in the end, especially by that scene towards the end where Olivia Colman is watching a movie in the cinema.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go 7.1.
That's fair. Yeah. And with that, we have finished our review of Empire of Light. If you enjoyed our discussion here, you can subscribe for more of these kind of reviews. Sam and I planning a couple more together. We've got award season right around the corner, a couple discussions of nominations. Of course, we're covering everything for the Oscars, so stick around here at Backlot Banter if you so desire, and we will see you guys in another review.